don't shine. There for each other, you know it's our time.
Yep, that's us.
Hello Internet, I'm the Disney Brain and welcome to my initial thoughts on Raven's Home. The news of Raven's return has been in the collective Disney Channel consciousness for over half a year, and now the network looks to continue reinvigorating their channel through old stars and old showrunners while distancing themselves completely from the dark ages. As far as strategy goes, it's been very effective so far, but does Raven's Home continue the Disney Channel renaissance of sorts? Well, let's discuss as we break down the pilot episode, Baxter's Back. We kick things off with an introduction to the show's trio of main characters, Booker, Nia, and Levi. I don't think I really need to tell you whose kids each of them are. And then we get the return of Chelsea and Raven herself, who for some reason was being really quiet when Levi was in the bathroom, and then everyone else is talking and she's just standing there for a really long time, kind of an awkward reintroduction. Thankfully, they give us a much more sensible reintroduction after the opening credits. In this show, Raven and Chelsea are living together after both of them ended up divorced, but it's directly stated that Raven's old flame drives the kids to school, setting up a dad reveal for later, which, oddly enough, is becoming more and more standard on this channel by the day. And, of course, you can't have a show about Raven Baxter without visions. Needless to say, seeing trouble from a distance, but it's not that easy, is and will continue to be a core mechanic of this show as well. It's later revealed that Booker also has vision powers, and the episode's plot becomes about convincing Nia that he's telling the truth, despite the fact that he constantly lies. Also, there's another young character called Tess, but there's really not much to say about her other than she'll be that girl. Oh, you know the one, the girl who's never at her own apartment because most of the plot is happening in, of course, Raven's home. So, Raven's first vision of this series was her thinking that Nia thinks it's always about Booker. Naturally, Raven goes overboard trying to shower her in affection, and that plays out exactly as you'd expect. Eventually, Booker does have another vision after a fart joke. But anyways, this results in him both arguing with, but also being worried about his twin sister, which I thought was a good place to take him. It makes sense that he'd bounce around a lot between both, since that's what siblings do. But, more importantly, the pilot didn't portray either twin as a complete caricature to the point of parody, which is an easy mistake to make in a studio audience sitcom, but they avoided that pitfall so far. Eventually, Raven's vision about an incoming suspension forces her hand and she bolts to the school. I really liked how Booker's second vision was framed and then executed in real time, something the original show usually did right as well. That point is kind of hard to properly explain, it just really works as a plot point and a character moment. Unfortunately, Raven's tennis commotion gets her suspended from school, which seems like a weird proclamation because if an emergency happens, she'd have to be there anyway, suspension or not, but minor details. And the episode ends with a nice mother-daughter moment and Chelsea being Chelsea. And that was the Raven's Home pilot, marking the second time Disney Channel has tried to recapture the glow of the original show. And not surprisingly, Raven's Home is already miles ahead of its first aired attempt. First, let's talk about Raven herself, because I'm here to tell you, she's not just here, she's back. Every single bit of her. Raven has not lost the signature attitude and comedic chops that made her a joy to watch over a decade ago. By default, she was always going to be the biggest thing pulling people into this new series. But that feeling is completely justified with this pilot. And so far, she's completely believable as a parent, at least by Disney Channel standards, and she already has a decent rapport going with her TV kids. But they also didn't give her so much screen time that it ever felt more about her than the kids. Most of us know who Raven and Chelsea are and how they act. Both firmly brought that back here. But the pilot also gave us a pretty good sense of who the kids are and what they'll end up being like. Getting Eric Dean Seaton on the director's chair for this one was another good choice, since he's worked on a wide number of Disney sitcoms as well as Nickelodeon ones, in addition to helming 11 That's So Raven episodes back in the day. Suffice to say, he knows what he's doing, and he mostly made it work here. Before we talk specifically about the kids, let's briefly touch on the theme song. Nothing is ever gonna beat the original That's So Raven theme. It's still probably the best theme song ever conceived by the network, but this theme is pretty solid and makes good use of the inspiration it takes from the original. And while it might seem minor, Raven saying, "Yep, that's us," was an interesting choice. I liked it because it made sure that everyone knew that this show would be more about the collective than any one person. Hopefully, that means we get some meaningful story arcs down the line alongside the goofier stuff, because if nobody grows, then it won't ever be a great show. Speaking of growth, the kids are pretty good here. There is way too much of this, and I fear that Levi may end up not being overly memorable except as someone to give more context to Chelsea, but otherwise they did just fine. As with any show like this, it's not really about who they are now so much as it is about where they go from here. Almost every good recent Disney show understands that, so Raven's Home cannot afford to backtrack on all that goodwill. It's on them to forge their own identity as Girl Meets World did, and not overly rely on nostalgic feels to see them through. All in all, the Raven's Home pilot provided some good laughs, some nice moments, and has so far found a way to feel both familiar and fresh without being completely tied down to its predecessor. It's also nice to see the channel once again breaking convention by going with a non-traditional family setting. Heck, they even addressed the divorces in episode 1. Can any other Disney Channel show claim that? Of course, they have to eventually do something impressive with that plot point or it doesn't count for much. But at the end of the day, Raven's Home is just plain fun, and even if it never aspires to be more than that, it can at least serve as a counterbalance to Andy Mac's dramatic weight without being needlessly stupid. And honestly, that's really all there is to it. That having been said, I probably won't review this show every single week as I've done with several shows in the past. Instead, I'll do what I did for season 4 of Liv and Maddie and focus only on the episodes that are discussion worthy. Otherwise, it'll quickly devolve into 3 or 4 minutes of me just doling out plot summations, and you can find that anywhere. But it is looking like episode 2, more than likely, will be worth digging into. So, assuming that's the case, we'll be right back here in Raven's Home a week from now. And as always, thanks for watching.
You right. Okay, let me go change into some sneakers. I'm gonna change my shirt and shave. What? There's a lot of single parents at that school.